Welcome to another edition of Pens Down. This is where we get journalists to drop their pen. That is why we call it Pens Down. So that instead of being the reporters and presenters, they become the newsmakers. We turn the tables here and let you into the inner workings of journalists. A lot happens. How did they get here? What are the things they grapple with? There's a lot to share. Today, we are taking you to Nigeria, and we are touching base with a senior colleague in Nigeria. She's an assistant editor-in-chief with the News Agency of Nigeria. You'll get the opportunity to read her profile on the screen while we go on with the conversation. I am joined today from Nigeria by Christiana Oluyinka Fadare. Thanks for joining me and welcome.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, sir, for having
me. It would have really fit you if you had been a nurse or some midwife or something. Why journalism? I mean,
it would have been a perfect fit for me to be something else.
That's right. So why journalism? How did you discover the journalist in you?
Well, thank you very much. I guess it all started from when I was in secondary school. Okay. I never, of course, when you're much younger, people would ask, what do you want to become when you grow up? I will say a lot of things. When I was much younger, I used to say I wanted to become a physiotherapist. Okay. Because I liked that word. It was complex and it was long. It is complex and long. So I wanted to be a physiotherapist. Okay. But what happened when I got to secondary school, I discovered a love for reading. Okay. Reading books, reading novels, and then writing. I was a student, but I took on history and literature in my junior class. And as according to what my tutors then said, they said I had a flair for writing. And also I remember things easily. So that was the starting point. I never set out to become a journalist. Okay. When I got to university, I joined the editorial board of my department. Okay. That is the Nigerian Agricultural Association of Nigeria. Okay. Agricultural Economic Student Association of Nigeria. Okay. The editorial board, and we were in charge of providing content for the whole faculty. Okay. That was first for me. Then as time went on, after I left university, I still didn't plan to be a journalist. When I went for the compulsory one-year youth service, I joined the drama group, and I found out that I was very artistic. I joined a dance group, a choreography group, and a drama group, and I was building up on my arts network. I was also fortunate to be able to do some master of ceremonies comparing. Okay. You understand? Yeah. And that exposed me, and I found out that I was falling in love with arts. Then the turning point eventually came when I finished my NYSC and I had to spend 11 months at home. My father worked in a media organization. Okay. And I knew about media, but he wasn't a journalist, he was an administrator. Okay. But when I finished my youth service and I was at home, that was when the media communication industry was liberalized in Nigeria. Okay. A lot of private media sprung up. And one of the first to get into the sector was AIT, African Independent Television. Yeah. And they were so bright, so flashy. They were the ones that brought on 24 hours broadcasting in Nigeria. Okay. Because at that time, the broadcast will start at 4 p.m. and last till maybe around 12 in the night, in the midnight. And that was the end for the day. But with the public television ownership, we found that broadcast became 24 hours. And the journalists I saw, they made me fall in love with it on TV. They would always be wearing bright and flashy clothing. They always speak right. And they did a lot of traveling. It was so bright, so showy, and I just wanted to be part of it. But I didn't have enough knowledge. So it just happened that by the time I was going to get a job, an acquaintance of my father, who happened to be a journalist, met with me one day during my youth service, and he got me talking about what I wanted and everything. So during that time, when I got back home after the youth service, he asked my father about me. He asked if I had started work and all that. My father said, I'm still looking for a job. So he now sent a message to me that I should come and see him. So I went to his office and he just told me, Nika, you have a good grasp of English. And having talked with you, I think you like to interact with people. I think you can do this job. I'm a journalist and I'm enjoying it. I think you can do the job. I said, sir, I hope so. But what, in those days, journalism was, the people, journalists, female journalists were notorious.
Yes.
When they were known to be big girls, in
Yeah.
quotes.
Yeah.
They go out with the most richest men. They live wayward lives and things like they live suspect lives, kind of. So I was
Yeah.
careful about accepting that offer immediately. I questioned him at last. I now said, let me think it over. I went home, I thought about it. I asked my father, and lo and behold, I'm in the profession even till now.
Wow.
That was
Wow.
said.
Wow. Now, I am excited about your specialty area, agric.
Yes.
Now, agric is still an underdeveloped sector across Africa. Indeed, the clear case of Nigeria is there is too much reliance on oil, and industries such as agric, which can be a major income earner, still remains underdeveloped. Let's look at the youth and agric. From all these years, you've done almost 2 decades and more of journalism. You're reporting in agric. How will you sum up the interest of the youth? Are they really embracing it, or there is apathy? What really is happening as far as going into agric is concerned?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Well, I want to correct your misconception.
Okay.
I never covered agric formally. Never
Okay.
till now. I never did.
Okay.
But I read the first degree and
Okay.
second
Okay.
degree.
Okay.
But, on my own, I have done reports on agriculture on my own institution,
Okay.
and I thought, yes, in the past, youths were really excited about agriculture.
Yeah.
They didn't want to go into it. You look at the fact that our farmers these days, they utilize crude implement in those days, and even a little now, though the landscape is changing. But our farmers these days utilize crude equipment, implements to farm. There's nothing exciting about them. They don't make so much money because you have the middlemen and transport and all that. Those marketers make more money than the producers. So
Yeah.
a lot of were not enticed into the industry. We had a lot of rural urban migration, people leaving farms, leaving the country, their hometowns for urban cities. But as we speak now, I think the status quo is changing, and it's changing fast because there has been a lot of call. There are many organizations that have risen up right now to um, to get youths involved in agriculture. And there has been a lot of introduction of technology into the sector. And you know, youths have a flair for technology. So anywhere, like you have drones being used for study climate, weather patterns, and all that.
Yeah.
You have the mechanization on the farms and all that. A lot of youths are being persuaded to get into the industry. I think that times are changing. More youths are coming. More youths are coming on board.
Right. Journalism, from what you said, journalism originally was not on your plate. I
Yes.
don't know whether to call it you fell into it by accident or you were tempted into it and you fell in love along the line. But you've been here for more than 2 decades. Does journalism pay?
Does journalism pay? Well, my answer will be double-edged.
Okay.
Yes, journalism pays, and journalism could pay.
Okay.
It could end up not paying so well. Why do I think so? I think from my own calculation, not from any study in particular, but I
Okay.
would think 60% of journalists may end up not becoming billionaires. I was reading a report some time ago, and it said journalism all over the globe has been classified as a middle level, middle income earner. Journalists will always end up being middle-ish, but for as little as maybe 10% of the industry, they might break through. You understand? So journalism pays to an extent, but not for the general populace. It is
Okay.
not a profession where you see 80% of the proponents or the professionals being billionaires or being wealthy or being rich, because journalism essentially is a work of passion. You do it because you are passionate about it, because you care, because you have ideals, not necessarily because you want to earn a large sum of money, because you might end up never earning a large sum. Though with the advent of the social media, we are now having more people making money from social media and all that, yes. But I will still stand on my ground that 60% of journalists might end up never becoming billionaires. They might just end up fulfilling their passion, their dreams.
You mentioned social media, and that's my next stop.
Okay.
How has social media changed the face of journalism?
Wow. Yeah. Social media. Social media, the advent of social media has been positive, and it has its negative sides too. Social media has opened up a larger horizon for journalism. If only traditional journalists can take up the opportunities available therein. Now it has made broadcasting, and it has made news more easily accessible. Let me give you an example. Recently, I was talking with a friend of mine. He happens to work in another media, a print media, while I work in a wire service. And we had not seen each other for years, so we're trying to catch up. And I now asked him, I said, does your organization still print hard copy? It's been a while since I saw the hard copy of the organization. He wanted to get angry. He asked me, don't you go out? Don't you have vendors on your streets? I said, well, to answer your question, we don't have vendors on my streets, which is not right. And I told him, I depend on my phone. I depend on my laptop for all the news that I get. You understand? I can get news on the go. News has been made more easily accessible to all and sundry. Now I can engage more with my audiences, my customers, on my phone and on my laptop. I don't need to buy a newspaper to do that. I can share my content and deliver it to the target audience faster than it used to be because of social media. I have more medium with which to broadcast my more platforms to broadcast my news. I can decide that I'll use Twitter. I can decide that I'll use Instagram. I can decide on Facebook. You know, we have a much larger landscape than we used to have. I can check facts online because of social media. There's so many things I can do with social media now, but that is the positive aspect. The negative aspect is that with the advent of social media, fake news has become so woven into the threads of journalism now. Character assassination, impersonation, that you might not even be able to detect the truth unless you are very good at fact checking. You understand? And another thing is that because a lot of untrained people have come into the industry, you have the citizens journalists, you have the bloggers and the influencers that never studied journalism or learned under anyone. They've lowered standards of news writing, news publishing, the standards are much lower than they used to be. So I'll say that yes, social media has impacted on journalism, but it's in two ways, both positively and negatively.
You work with a wire service, that is the news agency of Nigeria. Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong. One of the principles of wire services is that the reporters or the in-house writers perform in anonymity. That is, stories do not go with their bylines. Yes. I am wondering, in that case, how is individual brilliance, individual sterling performance celebrated?
Thank you very much. Yes, largely in wire service, individual brilliance and creativity might not automatically be showcased because we always do not carry a byline. But there's a way we work around it. Feature stories, features. Though the regular news story does not carry the byline, but our feature stories, they carry bylines. Okay. And you know, when you're looking for opportunities in the sector, what counts for you is your feature stories. That's what we call it. Because, you know, if you go to print, most of their stories are features. Yeah. You understand? They are long and worthy. You understand? Yeah. Unlike what we do in news agency journalism, short and straight to the point, because we have so many clients across the board. But if you want to showcase your own individual brilliance, your creativity, write more features in a wire service. It will bear your byline and it will bear your organization. You'll be easily located. So that's how we work.
You originally were not interested in journalism, but you've been here for more than 2 decades. Yes. What has kept you here?
What has kept me here? Well, that's an interesting question. I'll say love for the job, passion, and then love for the job and passion. I've always loved writing. Though when I entered the profession, if I had had more knowledge, I might not have decided to go for a wire service. I might have wanted to go into broadcast journalism. But as things would be, as I find myself, I was in the wire service and I'm still in the wire service. I found it interesting. I've met with people along the line. I've honed my interviewing skills. I've gone places. I've traveled. And these are all the things that make the job exciting for me. Meeting people and then making impact through your stories. I can remember there was an incident very early in 2000. There was the government were getting rid of, they were offloading their assets. So they decided to sell off their landed properties, their houses, their quarters for staff, ministries, MD, departments and agencies across board. The federal government was selling off their assets and decided to sell one particular asset across. It's located in Victoria Island. They decided to sell and the civil servants that were occupying that particular estate were told to vacate. And I happened to cover the story. Their encounter, their journey, their trials, how they begged the government and everything. And I can say that my writing, I was the first person that started to cover that particular encounter. And it's made the impact because I had contact with the people at the helm of affairs, the estate directors, estate representatives, estate coordinators. So I was able to get more news than most of the other media, you understand? And I found when my news would go out, I'll get phone calls from people I didn't know. And then government was listening and they were trying to make amends. So in the end, they still ended up selling the estates. But I can still make a good showing for ourselves. It was broadcast internationally. Foreign journalists came into the scene, all because of the fact that I took up the gauntlets and started covering them. You understand? So I think my passion, my love for writing, for interviewing, and I would say basically my passion. I'm passionate about it. I love writing. I love speaking to people and going places. So that.
What stands out as the most challenging assignment you have undertaken?
Yes. The most challenging assignment. I never really faced challenges per se, but I can remember a particular assignment I had to go for when I first started journalism. I was told to cover a riot at what we call mile 2 axis in Lagos State. Street urchins were confronting the police over some issue, and I was told to cover it. And like I said, I was new on the job.
Okay.
When we got there, I found a lot of people running helter skelter. The police were shooting tear gas into the air, and there was a lot of shooting real bullets too. I was scared stiff.
Wow.
I was scared stiff. I didn't know what to do. My first thought was, I think I better get myself out of here because everybody was running. I didn't even know where to start from. I didn't know where to start covering the events from. I didn't know who to talk to. But I think for me, it was a fearful episode. It happened to be one of the most fearful news coverage I've ever done. But apart from that, I can't really say much of my news coverage has been particularly challenging. Though they've been satisfying.
There is a practice in journalism. Nigeria calls it the brown envelope. Liberia calls it professional services or CATU. Ghana calls it SOLE, which is the short form for solidarity. Down in Malawi, they call it logistics. South Sudan has a dual name for it. They call it TR or FR. That is transport refund or food refund. There are various names for it, depending on where you are located. But I'm sure you know what I am talking about. I want to take your opinion on it. What do you make or what's your take on this practice?
Thank you. The brown envelope syndrome. Well, my take is it is not ethical. It's a form of inducement, though subtle. A subtle inducement to influence the journalist. Of course, journalists will say, oh, it's not an inducement. It's just a transport for us to be able to transport ourselves from the venue back. But you see, once you collect that brown envelope, you fall under a compulsion to temper down on your news story. You understand? And of course, we also have to look at it in another way. Our journalists in Nigeria, which is where I have the most knowledge of journalism, in Nigeria, a lot of journalists are going through tough times. They are family men, family women. They have their husbands and their wives. They have their children. They have to maintain their homes. But welfare is not being adequately catered for in the industry. We have a lot of organizations owing workers months, 11 months, even years. So the temptation is strong to collect the brown envelope. But the truth is not ethical. So my plea would be that media owners, they should step up to the plate. They should do more in terms of welfare, in terms of taking better care of their employees. If we can do that, then I think this syndrome might be tackled to a larger extent. Some journalists will tell me that this brown envelope we collect at every assignment is not really the inducement, it's just transport. It's when you collect that one they give you behind the scenes where nobody knows. That brown envelope that is fully loaded, that is packed, that is thicker than the one you normally collect for as transport, that is the inducement. But I beg to differ because I think no matter how small, your coverage is being induced, though subtly, but it's being induced. You are being what do I call it now? You are being
Compromised, maybe.
Compromised. Yes, that's the word for it. So it's not ethical at all. But I beg media owners to do more in terms of welfare employees. So maybe we see an end to the brown envelope syndrome.
Has it always been the news agency of Nigeria for you since you started journalism, or you've worked somewhere else?
It has always been NAN for me.
Wow.
It has always been.
Now let's talk about attrition in journalism. There are a lot of our highly trained and highly qualified colleagues who are leaving or have left. Some of them are now in public relations, corporate communications, politics, and any other thing that will embrace them. What do you think is accounting for this high rate of attrition in journalism?
Thank you. I think that answer, I gave it in my earlier answer. Welfare. When you do a job for years and you cannot boast of your own roof over your head, you cannot point to any accomplishment you have made apart from on the job, but material things are lacking. You begin to ask yourself, is it worth it? You understand? And when you work on a job, you don't earn a living wage. You can't take care of your responsibility. You are suffering for it. If you have another alternative, which you think might meet your need, you'll be sorely tempted to fly. You understand? So I think that is one thing that accounts for the attrition in journalism. Then another thing is that, as with most other things, you could burn out on the job.
Yeah.
You could burn out on the job. When I was younger in the profession, I used to go out to cover news and all that. But now I'm an editor on the desk. And you edit. Sometimes you have to be in a particular frame of mind. If not, it just won't flow for you. You understand? Many times you have to be in a particular frame of mind, relaxed, calm, focused, and all that. But when you begin to burn out on the job and you are not getting enough excitement, you are not as excited as you should be or you used to be in the job. It's time for you to look elsewhere. You understand? So these are some of the things I think account for the attrition in the profession.
If we are to go back into time, 25 years, are you still going to choose journalism or you do something else?
If you were to go back in time, I'll still choose journalism, though I might not choose to have spent so as long as I have spent in the profession. You understand? But I have wanted to explore some other things along the line. But I'm still very thankful for what I've been able to achieve on the profession so far. So 25 years down the line, I think I'll still choose journalism. I've had a good time. I've enjoyed it. And I'm still enjoying it.
Let me pick your thoughts on this media matter, political ownership of the media. All across Africa, there are top politicians and powerful politically exposed persons that own and run media houses, some of them which are very influential. As professionals, from our own standpoint, is that a healthy development or we are sitting on a time bomb?
I won't call it sitting on a time bomb per se, but it's not a healthy development. If you have to go to more developed clients, you find that the ownership of the media is majorly by the private sector. Majorly by the private sector, not the public, you understand? But you see, a lot of politicians have the money, have the finances to set up a media organization, which many others do not have. There's something I heard, and I don't know whether I'm going to be speaking exactly as I heard it, but it says that the truth is the resources of our nation rest in the hands of about 10% of the population.
Eva, that's the reality across the world. Less than 10% of the world are billionaires and they control the decisions of the remaining 98%.
Thank you. That is the truth. And I find that These 10% are the ones that have the resources, what it takes to set up such an organization, to furnish it. And apart from that, you have people that understand the importance of the media. Most of them are politicians. They know that they can determine content. They can influence public opinion. They can secure a larger political clout for themselves by owning the media. They can determine coverage. You understand? These are the people that really understand what the media stands for. You find out that media owners are politicians because they know what there is to gain from it, and they are the ones that have the resources. So these are the things that I think accounts for the political ownership. It's not a time bomb per se, because it has been in existence from way back independence in Nigeria. You had the Moshood Abiola,
Yes.
he owned Concord, you understand?
Yes.
Eventually, he wanted to turn from a billionaire businessman into the president of the country. You understand? So you have a lot of it like that. It has been in existence, you understand? It's not an healthy development at all, but that is the way we have it.
Let's talk about your golden memories. More than 20 years should have some incidents that stand out for you as highlights of your career. Let's talk about your golden memories.
Well, like I said, meeting people, the people I've met, the friends made on the job. And I want to say that I've had opportunity to travel around the country. From north to the east to the west. Except south, I've never really been there, you understand?
Okay.
Also, I remember there was a trip we were supposed to take with the board of the Nigerian Railway Corporation when I was covering transport. And though I had been to a school far away from where I grew up in secondary school, so I was familiar with air travel, traveling by air, because I was living in the north and living in the west. So I had to go by air. I was familiar with traveling by road, but I had never once been on a boat. I had never been on a train. I had never been on a ship. But on this profession, I was able to do all that. You understand? And I remember that trip that we took with the Nigerian Railway Corporation Board of Directors. The chairman was going on a tour of the northern and the eastern region of the organization. You understand? And we had to take a train. It was the same train that took Queen Elizabeth when she came to Nigeria. When she came to Nigeria, so imagine that in that train, we have a conference room. We had fully furnished conveniences, bathtubs, and all that.
That's a moving house.
It was a moving house. You get it. Well furnished and all that. It was exciting. We would stay up till late in the night talking, rubbing minds, getting to know each other. It was fun for me. And apart from that, there are so many other trips I've been able to take on the job. And I fell in love with traveling. You know, I fell in love with traveling. I had the opportunity to build up my skills, interviewing, met people, and made impact. I was able to change one or two lives along the way. So I can say the highlights. I've been to some places. So I thank God for it.
All over Africa, social media has created richer bloggers than richer journalists. But you and I are the professionals who have been trained to lead the conversation in public education and information dissemination. Social media should just be seen as an extension of the platforms we need to make that happen. Where did we go wrong? What have we not done right? Why are people who are scarcely trained in the skills we have making more money than us?
Wow, an interesting question. Well, I think, I'm not sure whether you asked me a question, but I think you asked me a question about how social media has impacted journalism.
That's right. Yes.
Social media came. The truth is, a lot of traditional journalists did not believe it was going to make us the impact it has made now, that it was going to change the face of journalism as we know it. So we did not get on board as early as we should. And we kept on saying nothing can erode the importance, the relevance of traditional media. We keep on being relevant. And yes, we keep on being relevant, but if we don't improve on our skill sets, if we don't take up opportunities on social media, like bloggers have been able to, influencers are doing, then the truth is we keep on remaining sidelined. If we don't find out the opportunities that exist in social media and begin to harness those opportunities, the truth is we'll keep on being sidelined. You understand? So the way I see it, most of our bloggers that you have now, influencers, you find that most of them are youths. They are people that are technology creative.
Yes.
From many of them have been exposed to technology at a level that the average Nigerian journalist will not say he or she has been exposed to. We've been slow in taking up this technological change, and that is what is affecting us. But I think I see changes coming up with new organizations coming up, introducing data analytics and search engine optimization and so many other things. I think I see the horizon changing only if journalists can speed up, they can intentionally and deliberately take up the skill sets that would help them to triumph. So that's the way I see it.
If there is a proposition to license journalists, as lawyers are licensed before they practice, or medical doctors are licensed before they practice, will you support it?
I'll support it. I'll support it. And as at present, the Nigerian Union of Journalists in Nigeria has made it mandatory that for you to be professional and to be their member, you have to have some sort of certification, even if it's only a diploma, even if it's only a diploma in journalism or in mass communication, for you to become their member. And I think it's necessary. If you go to many doctors' offices, when you enter the offices, you look where they are seated, you look on their walls, their certificates are exposed for all to see. They are trained not on the job, they are trained to do the work they are doing. So I believe every journalist must be trained to an extent. Your training might be within the four walls of the school, or it might be a training that is on the job. You will learn on the job. But either which way, there must be some form of training. Because if not, this ethics of the profession that we continually tout would not withstand the onslaught that will come from ignorance and uneducated journalists. A lot of quackery will keep on existing in the profession. And as it is now, you mentioned bloggers. We have a lot of bloggers on social media now saying that they are journalists. There's a particular blogger. She started as a blogger before she got into media proper, and she started a media organization of her own. She never trained for it. And I can say the backlash, she might not be enjoying it now, because just recently, about a week or two ago, I read a story where it says that she had been fined by the courts millions of naira for assassinating, for defaming somebody. But if she had been trained on the job, that might not come into play. You understand? She might have known what to avoid. She might have known what to look out for that might be called defamation or character assassination. You understand? But now she has to pay large sums of money to people. That's not the first time she has been taken to court on that publication, all because she has not been trained on that job. Yes, she's a media owner. And so I thoroughly believe there's a need to license journalists. There's a need to tackle quackery in the profession. Because one thing about journalism is we could call it an all-comers affair. I told you, I didn't study journalism. We have a lot of people like me who didn't study journalism, but over time, I had to go and do degrees. Communication to shore up my knowledge. I have to learn to shore up my knowledge. But so in licensing journalism, we would be able to tackle this issue of quackery. And then you have a lot of people calling themselves journalists these days that don't even know what the profession stands for. They just believe the only thing is just push the news out there. Just anytime there's breaking news, just push it out there. They don't take care to ensure that standards are met, ethics are fully satisfied. You understand? So yes, there is a need for licensing of media professionals.
Let me play the devil's advocate here. Licensing, yes, the narrative you have given is absolutely idealistic, and it will completely cleanse the profession of all these masquerades, if I may put it that way, who are giving the craft a bad name. But you know, politicians have a lot of issues with journalism, the no-nonsense brand of journalists. Journalists who crack the whip without looking over their shoulders. Investigative journalists who go into the lion's den to bring what the ordinary one cannot do. Those that are consistently exposing the destroyers of the society and those who are looting the nation dry. Politicians are very smart. Is there no downside to licensing journalists? Some of them might end up masquerading themselves behind the licensing bodies. We have already agreed that some journalists are naturally hungry. We are less paid. Politicians might end up masquerading themselves behind the licensing bodies to exert vengeance, because if there is a licensing regime, there should be the issuance of the license, renewal, and other things. Some journalists will have the issuance of their license or renewal delayed over flimsy excuses because some politician feels they should be immobilized for some time, or they should be taught some lesson in a certain way, albeit from their colleagues. That is, if the person does not look beyond the surface. Don't you think there's a downside to licensing journalists?
As you put it, from your point of view, there might be a downside, but I also think the way it could be tackled. Talk about licensing. Who does licensing? Is it government or journalists themselves? The kind of licensing we've talked about now has been, like I said, the NUJ, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, especially Lagos, to which I belong, made a rule, and they said, if you don't have a qualification, a certificate to show that you are trained on the job, it cannot be our. You understand? In this case, I don't see politicians, I don't see big wigs being able to assert so much influence on a strong NUJ. If NUJ were the licensing body, you understand? But if the licensing body is taken away from journalists and is given to government or to private sector, then you might see a lot of misdemeanors, misappropriation. You understand? But if the licensing is done by journalists themselves, like for example, talk about accountants. You have the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. Is accountants that when they are chartered by their own body. You understand? They are given their license by their own body, not by the federal government, not by the private sector, but by themselves, by their own body. So if the body in charge of such groups can take up the licensing, I think, though politicians may definitely try, but I don't think there'll be a case where the licensing can be abused. I don't know whether that makes sense.
Yes, I get you. I get your point. This your love affair with journalism. It's over 20 years already. Is it going to be for life, or you file for divorce at a point?
Oh my. My love affair with journalism, interesting. As things, of course, as you spend time on the job, it's expected of you that you'll be planning, you'll be looking towards the future, you'll be interrogating yourself to to fashion out the best soft landing you can give yourself as you age. Because sooner or later, I'm in the public service, I'll retire. And so far, I see myself at some point, maybe branching up into consultancy, not doing in mainstream journalism. You understand?
Yeah.
Which is the reasons why I had to go and get certificates for journalism. And also, I'm running some programs, a PhD in agricultural communication. You understand? I'm looking forward to a time when I'll be able to share some of the experiences I've been able to gain on the job in classrooms, you understand, and do some consultancy work. And there are one or two other things, you understand. These are some of the things running through my mind now, because I must say I have to think about that. You understand?
Yeah. If today a mentee, somebody who looks up to you, walks up to you, or maybe your own child walks up to you and says, I am thinking of becoming a journalist in future, is that person getting your blessing? If they will, what is that advice you give them for them to do things differently from the way you did?
Good. Thank you. Like I told you, getting into the profession, what just came to me like that.
Okay.
And though I had a love for the written word, for the spoken word, but I never consciously decided to be a journalist. I just loved it. Understand?
Okay.
So if a mentee were to come up to me to tell me that he or she wants to become a journalist, I won't discourage, but I would encourage them to get more knowledge. Number one, they have to know which field will be best for them. Is it broadcast journalism? Is it print? Is it any other electronic media? Is it a wire service? Is it online? Whatever. They have to be sure of where their talents, their interests, their gifts, where it lies. I won't discourage them at all, but they have to have more knowledge than I had when I was getting into the profession.
Okay.
And then, and they have to know they have to have a particular plan about how they want to shoot above the average journalist. How they want to go way and beyond the average journalist. They have to have a lot of knowledge about what it takes in the profession. It's not only running here and there, covering news items and doing interviews. You also have to be intentional about what you hope to achieve on the job, which are things that never came to me easily. I'm going to be 50 this year, and I must say I started late to start to get focused, to realize that everything I need is not just running from one length of Lagos to another, covering events, doing interviews. There are some other things I need to put in place to be able to say I thoroughly fulfilled all my desire on the job. You understand? So I'll tell them to keep knowledge
the field of journalism has a lot of landmines. One of the unmistakable landmines is compromise or bribery. In the line of duty, has anybody ever attempted or approached you with anything, monetary or material, to compromise the facts of any story you were doing?
Well, not really, but I've had encounters with people that wanted to blackmail.
Okay.
Journalists, not people wanting to blackmail me, but journalists wanting me to team up with them to blackmail someone. You understand?
Wow.
I've had encounters with that, and thankfully, I didn't fall prey. And but as someone offering me a bribe or inducement to cover up news or to say it should be, I've never had an encounter like that.
In your spare time, you love to teach the children in your local church and also read. How
Yes.
central is God in all you do, even professionally?
Thank you. Wow. God is front and foremost for me. I tell myself frequently every day, I remind myself that there's nothing I can do. I'm nothing without God.
Mm.
My relationship with God gives me peace. And when I spend time communicating with God in prayer, it gives me confidence, it calms me down, it makes me focused on the job. And many times when I read the scripture, I learn about how to take care of, how to go about my job. Seest thou a man diligent in his way, he will stand before kings and not mean men. That is one scripture that has made a lot of sense to me, that has resonated with me over the years. And so many other scriptures like that. When you work, do it with all your heart. Have
Mm.
a strong work ethic. You understand? Be diligent in what you're doing. These are all the things that have made me who I am today. God.
Wow. Thank you for this conversation. I have
Sir.
enjoyed this. Truly
Thank you.
exciting conversation.
Thank you, sir.
I'm grateful. We are grateful for your time on PENSDOWN.
Thank you, sir. Well,
It's been long in coming. This conversation, we started talking about it. I think it's been almost a year, if not more. It's been long in coming, but I think the wait was more than worth it. Today's been exciting, and we've been able to get quite some perspective on media matters in addition to her sharing her journalism journey. We travel to Nigeria today, to the news agency of Nigeria, and we touch base with an assistant editor-in-chief there, Christiana Oluyinka Fadare. She was our guest on PENSDOWN today. This is the only single menu platform dedicated to journalists worldwide to talk about their journalism journeys. We don't do any other thing than allow them to put the CCTV camera on themselves. This time, they are the newsmakers, not reporters or presenters. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again with another colleague, and still we'll be talking their journalism journey. Bye for now.